The person speaking right now has locked up more Americans than any non-president in human history, by the way.
Also, the person that's speaking has blown her way to the top.
Blown and caged.
In a state of 40 million
Caged.
Which I mean, talk about carrot and stick, huh?
The policy was to allow deportation of people who, by ICE's own definition, were non-criminals. So as Attorney General and the Chief Law Officer of the state of California, I issued a directive to the sheriffs of my state that they did not have to comply with detainers and instead should make decisions based on the best interest of public safety of their community. Because what I saw, and I was tracking it every day, I was tracking it and saw that parents, people who had not committed a crime, even by ICE's own definition, were being deported. But I have to add a point here. The problem with this kind of policy, and I know it as a prosecutor, Senator, I want a rape victim to be able to run in the middle of the street and wave down a police officer and report the crime against her. I want anybody who has been the victim of any real crime to be able to do that and not be afraid that if they do that, they will be deported because the abuser will tell them it is they who are the criminal. It is wrong. It is wrong.
We're going to turn
if
to
she has any warrants, I'm going to lock her up.
Last night, we asked the candidates on this stage to name the greatest geopolitical threat facing the U.S. 4 of them mention China. U.S. businesses say China steals our intellectual property, and party leaders on both sides accuse China of manipulating their currency to keep the cost of goods artificially low. I'll ask this to Senator Bennett to start off with. How would you stand up to China?
I think that, first of all, the biggest threat to our national security right now is Russia, not China. And second, on China, we've got competition because of what they've done with our election. In China, I think the president's been right to push back on China, but has done it in completely the wrong way.
Are we still doing this?
We should mobilize the entire rest
of the world. We're still doing this.
We have a shared interest in pushing back on China's mercantilist trade policies, and I think we can do that. I'd like to answer the other question before this as well.
You have the time.
When I see these kids at the border, I see my mom because I know she sees herself, because she was separated from her parents for years during the Holocaust in Poland. And for Donald Trump to be doing what he's doing to children and their families at the borders, I say this as somebody who
Thank you for saying that. Yes, this guy does not know how to speak even a little bit. Like, I don't understand most, like, Holocaust. What?
Had the most progressive dream act that's ever been conceived, much less passed. It got 68 votes in the Senate.
He might just be really nervous.
$46 billion.
But I'm nervous, and I sound great.
There was sophisticated 21st century border security, not a medieval wall. And the president has turned the border of the United States into a symbol of nativist hostility that the whole world is looking at, when what we should be represented by is the Statue of Liberty, which has brought my parents.
This guy is talking like a drunk Nancy Pelosi at happy hour.
This is not. That didn't. I mean, people applauded, but that didn't help him.
Technology and taking jobs.
Yes.
Worried about China.
Everyone, shut up.
How would you stand up against it?
Well, I just want to agree that I think Russia is our greatest geopolitical threat because they've been hacking our democracy successfully, and they've been laughing their asses off about it for the last couple of years. So we should focus on that before we start worrying about other threats. Now, China, they do pirate intellectual property. It's a massive problem. But the tariffs and the trade war are just punishing businesses and producers and workers on both sides. I met with a farmer in Iowa who said he spent 6 years building up a buying relationship in China that's now disappeared and gone forever. And the beneficiaries have not been American workers or people in China. It's been Southeast Asia and other producers that have then stepped into the void. So we need to crack down on Chinese malfeasance in the trade relationship, but the tariffs and the trade war are the wrong way to go.
All right, Mayor Buttigieg, how would you stand up against China?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've got to recognize that the China challenge really is a serious one.
I'm gay, so listen, the problem with Yang is that he's still answering this like he's being interviewed and giving straightforward answers. He's not like doing the pander thing, which I actually respect about him, but it's not helping. Because
folks who aren't in the shadow of a
well, maybe it is helping. Maybe people like that, but I think most people want to hear that Donald Trump is racist, the border's like a Holocaust, and
Americans are going to pay on
you know, everything is a right. and the rich have to pay for it.
And Becky Self in the comments here is correct. Like, calling what's happening at the border comparative to the Holocaust is highly disrespectful to Jews, which we discussed that on Tuesday's show. So, like, we have covered this. Like, it is highly disrespectful.
It is. It's very disrespectful.
We personally do it because it just for the same thing that we talked about on Tuesday. They do it because it elicits fear in people, and that releases dopamine and serotonin. So people come back to listen more of what you have to say.
Right. And it doesn't help anything. Like, we personally are against immigration control and border control, but comparing it to a massive genocide is not helpful, and just it makes people feel good, and people are still going to get detained, and illegals are still going to come in. And also, yeah, it doesn't fix anything. So the problem with immigrants, for the most part, especially illegal immigrants, is that there we go. There's Donald Trump is losing the election, the polling. So when the reason that the problem with illegal immigration is that because of laws and regulations and taxes that make you as an American more expensive to hire, it becomes less expensive, even with the risk of prosecution, to hire an illegal. That's the problem. The problem isn't people coming here. The problems are the welfare state, which are a magnet for people who don't come here to work. And the other problem is the ones who do come here to work are instantly at an advantage over you. So the problem is, in both cases, the government. It's the welfare state, and it's the regulatory state, and the labor regulation state. The problem is government. If you instead go, this is the Holocaust, families belong together, that doesn't fix anything. It makes certain people feel better, but it doesn't actually fix anything. And it's going to continue. It's going to continue with whoever is the next president.
And pretty much, like what you said there was, the problem is the government. And that is the problem with every single thing that they're talking about. The reason healthcare prices are so high is because of the government.
Right.
The reason schooling is so that post-high school education is so high is because of the government. The reason that everything that they have talked about so far is because of the government, and they are trying to insert more government into these things. What they should be doing is getting the government out. I mean, they won't, because that's not what the Democrats do. That's not what the Republicans do either. Don't mix up what I'm saying here. But that's not what anybody does. They feel that the government needs to be there to control the people. I feel I can say this for us. We feel as though if there's no government in control of these things, everything would run much smoother, much cheaper, and much, much better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's always going to be problems. Like, anyone who tries to sell you on a utopia is lying to you. There will always be problems, but in a decentralized free market economy and society where decisions are made by consumers and providers, in that kind of situation, it's going to be a lot easier to fix stuff because everyone involved has a built-in motive to fix it for themselves and for the people they care about, as opposed to politicians who have a vested interest in making problems worse so they can demagogue them and get reelected and blame it on someone else. And that in and of itself, putting aside all the other problems with government, is why it doesn't work. It doesn't, at this point, for anyone to look at you and say, yeah, the government got us here, only government can solve it. It's a mess. Like, that's nonsense.
And Reagan is the deity of the right up until recently, where Trump apparently has taken that moniker. But he said the scariest words there are I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
And I'm here to help. Yeah.
Right. It's something along those lines. And he's right. Like that is accurate, but nobody has done anything to lessen government since
Coolidge.
Did he do anything to lessen government, or did he just kind of...
Taxes went down majorly and government went down, but he was also he was a alcohol prohibition warrior. So no, since the people that were shooting at the British.